How you doing, folks? So it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Are you listening to us in Australia? We have one or two listeners down there. It's good day. And this morning I have Dr. Keith Murphy on with me. And Keith, the reason I have Keith actually is Keith, I saw a fantastic article that Keith wrote for The Leader. It's like a magazine for deputy principals and headmasters and headmistresses and head teachers, all that type of stuff. And it was like reading about myself. So I reached out to Keith about doing a small interview with Keith because anyone who's dyslexic and is in college or going to college or anything like that, I think you'll find it very interesting. So good morning, Keith. Thanks very much for your
Morning,
time.
Mark.
Can you give us a small brief? And you're Dr. Keith Murphy, but I know even though I have a cold, and forgive me, folks, if I sound a bit croaky, Keith is not a medical doctor, so he cannot help me in any way or any shape or form. So I can't even ask him on the slide to give me some drugs. It won't happen. So Keith, can you just give just a small, a couple of minutes of who is Dr. Keith Murphy?
Yeah, so I suppose the doctor part is because I have a PhD. So I have a PhD in anthropology, and the subject that my thesis specializes on is dyslexia. But it's looking at students who have dyslexia in third level education or higher education, which is university, and how they kind of navigate that space. Obviously, with the characteristics of being like a good academic, and then the characteristics of what you'd have being a person with dyslexia kind of clash. So it's just looking at how they got through that because I myself discovered I have dyslexia while in college recently. And yeah, I found it very interesting. So that's what the doctor and the PhD stands for. So I'm Keith, as you say. I come from Clondalkin, little place in Dublin. I left school quite young. In secondary school, it didn't work for me. I didn't like school. Loved learning, but I hated the actual system of how they teach. So it didn't suit me at all. So I left and I became a painter. So I was a painter all my life. Lived in London, lived in Sydney, Australia, came back to Ireland, started my own business. 2007 had a really serious accident. Done a lot of damage to my back, my shoulder, my leg, stuff like that. I had to fall off a ladder. So I was kind of in rehabilitation for 2 years, trying to get back to my old self, which was never going to happen. So I ended up doing a course with Rehab Care have a subsidiary called the National Learning Network, and it's a college for people who have disabilities or things going on, and they get 2 years to do like an ETB course, which is a further education course, like a post-leaving cert course. And instead of doing it in 1 year, you get 2 years because incorporated into the education and learning piece is also you do your recovery. So
All
anything
right.
you need to do, even in terms of mental health and stuff like that, it's an absolute fabulous resource for
Okay.
people. And it's a real safe place where you can learn, be yourself, grow into yourself. Like it's a fabulous environment. So National Learning Network, if anybody is interested in it. And from there, then they supported me to go on to Maynooth University. So I went there in 2010. I did a degree in anthropology and medieval Irish and Celtic studies. I did a HDIP in adult and community education, master's in education, and then I won a scholarship to do a PhD. And it
Okay.
was only in the fourth year of that PhD that the struggles with dyslexia just got too much. And
And
I
how,
got
how
septic,
old how old were you then?
And let me do the maths now because I think I might have a bit of dyslexia. So that was 2017. So I think I was probably about 52.
And it's amazing because I was 35. You're dyslexic, I'm dyslexic. I was 35 when I was diagnosed, and
Yeah.
before that, now you may be different. I didn't really know what dyslexia was. I just knew that I had the worst handwriting known to man, and my spelling was atrocious. Um, and I got diagnosed because I was doing a master's at Trinity College,
Yeah.
and when I was doing it, the exams were by paper. So you wrote, and they came to me after my first exam. Now, I used to go in every Friday full time, and I was running a company with about 200 or 300 people, turning over 40 million. And we just sold a company to Aircom, and still every Friday, I was sick as a dog with the worry that
Mm.
I wouldn't be able to write properly, I wouldn't be able to bring the stuff back, to do my notes properly, that I was going to fail the exam.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I had an idea of what dyslexia was in my kind of understanding of,
Yeah.
when you're rare and you go to places and schools and all. Dyslexia to me, I had it completely related to intelligence. So I could never really think. I didn't know anything about it, but I just thought it was something that I didn't have because I thought you wouldn't be able to write, you wouldn't be able to read. I didn't think if you had dyslexia, you'd be able to go to college because I
Yeah, and
had it.
like, and you left school early,
Yeah,
so
very early. I left
was that
school.
because of dyslexia?
Yeah, it was because of I just was useless in school,
Right.
and they kept telling me I was stupid and I'd never amount to anything, and all of that historical thing that would happen in the
Yeah.
day. This was in the early '80s, and it was just a horrible experience, and I hated it and I dreaded it, and
Mm.
it was causing untold damage to me and myself, and even today I still carry the scars of that experience in secondary school. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the final straw came when I was asked to read French, and I've more of a mellow Dublin accent than I had then. I think from the 10 or so years living away, and then in my job I kind of have to tone it down. But I had a real thick Dublin accent, and I was reading French in that thick Dublin accent, and
Yeah.
she started laughing at how I was pronouncing things.
Right.
So that was the final straw. I kind of had a little meltdown in the class, and I got, you know, reprimanded severely. So I just left. But I left and became a painter because that's what I always wanted to do.
Right.
So I
Okay.
didn't see the point in school because I thought I'd never need school to be a painter. But my father would always say, "Well, you're not leaving school till you got a good job. And
Yeah.
even if you leave, you should always do your exams." And
Yeah. And that's
I
probably
met
what
my
life
wife.
gave.
Yeah. Like I was starting to go out with my wife, who's still with me today, God love her. And she used to say to me that it would be extremely important to get your exam. So I went back and set the exams, and I passed just about, but I got the piece of paper, which
Yeah.
turned out going to Australia and all to be very useful. So it was a good move.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm the opposite because like they actually one of my worst teachers in secondary school was a French teacher, a
Yeah,
small class, and like I used to go. The one thing I used to do was go on the Mitch.
yeah, yeah. Me too.
Which
Yeah,
anybody listening to this, the Mitch means being absent without leave, right?
yeah,
And I had a great way. I knew the person answering the phone, the brother answering the phone in the school, was about 75, 80. So I pretended to be my dad saying I wasn't coming in. But I was caught. And the French teacher made sure I got six in the best of the letter on each hand. And
yeah,
this chap actually, his feet left the ground because my dad said to me, he might give you one or two slaps. I never told my dad I got six of each because I think my dad would have gone up and laid him out flat.
yeah,
But
yeah.
this chap, his feet left the floor, but I never cried. But I was the opposite. They wouldn't allow me to live, and I wanted to be a ship's captain. I wanted to be
Oh,
trained.
yeah.
Now in hindsight, I say back here to do physics. Like, come on, I'm dyslexic when it comes to algebra and all that. It's a foreign language, never mind doing French. So it was never, but I was told, yeah, stupid every day. And the only thing that saved me was, as I tell people, I started working on the car ferries when I was 14 during the summer holidays.
Nice.
I
Yeah,
suddenly realized, God, I can make money. And I was running a tea bar. I knew how to order stock. I knew what to do. I knew how to serve people. I knew what stock I needed based on the number of people coming on board. I knew all that type of stuff. And I was earning more money during the summer than my teachers were.
yeah.
But like, yeah, like, but if you had asked me then to do a PhD like you did, I would have, yeah, I would have been gone. But I stayed to the end. I got the piece of paper, but I think I can't remember what's on mine, and my wife never believes this, but probably because I know I did so bad that I've wiped it. Right, it's gone. It's completely gone. So you went off, and even working as a painter, you must have still had to use maths and all, and measurements, and how much paint you had to. So you must have still very good and all that, and building up a business.
Well, it's just that's kind of experience you learn, and
Right.
you generally learn by undercharging or over calculating stock and stuff like that. So I learned, but I watch. So I don't read because I'm very bad at remembering things. But when I watch someone doing something a few times, I pick it up and I'm able to do it. So I spoke with other people as I was being an apprentice. I was working with people. I was talking to them all the time. gathering there. I was being an anthropologist and I didn't even know it. You know, I
Right.
was gathering all the information, doing my research and getting to know it. And look, at the beginning, I made a few cock-ups, but I was always lucky that I met decent people who kind of helped you along as well. And maybe they noticed something going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just learned. I learned. But again, I made a lot. I undercharged a lot of jobs, but I was quite quick, so I still made money out of it, and I was good, so I had a good reputation, you know. So,
Yeah.
but you know, I don't know. I did, but I mean, I couldn't never use a computer. I actually ended up in the college and rehab just to learn about a computer. So I'd go out, I'd have a notebook, I'd write everything down, I'd work out the calculations, I'd give it to Jenny, my wife. We'd spend 3 days trying to decipher what the hell I wrote. And then she
Yeah. I
tried
know the
to let me
feeling.
know. Yeah, so I mean, my writing is atrocious. It's atrocious.
Yeah.
And thank God for the red, blue, and green lines on the Word document, because God knows what I'd be submitting. But I
Yeah.
mean, again, I've
Yeah.
learned over the years now, and like obviously that doesn't happen as much now. But I mean,
Yeah.
at the beginning, it was horrendous. But you know, the state system in Ireland. So when I had my accident, I couldn't get state help because I was self-employed.
Self-employed.
So
Yeah.
you never pay the full stamp, even though you pay more than everybody else. But um, I we had savings, and then because you have that, you know the way it works, the system. I'm
I
not
do.
going
Yeah. I've been
to
there.
not going to go slating the system and the government and all. This is not the space. But eventually, I qualified, and what happened was a computer course came up. You know, the ECDL and computers.
Yes. Yes.
And they said if I went to FOSS, or if I went to the National Air Network, FOSS would pay me €250 a week.
Oh, right.
So
Okay.
that I hate admitting it, but that was the only reason I went back to school.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I
And
never read a book for the entire time I left school till I was 41. I never read a book ever. I read Ulysses when I lived in Australia, the James Joyce book, because all of me mates and all were reading it, and I felt like the village idiot because I
right.
couldn't
Okay.
relate when they were talking about it, and I read it, and that 100% confirmed what I thought, that I actually am stupid because I had not got a clue what that book meant.
Yeah. And it's probably because, like, as you know, you can't be dyslexic unless you have a high IQ, which when you tell people that, to look and you go, what? Because, like, my wife Anne Marie, who runs the Paragraph Challenge, has been helping people for nearly 19 years now. People as young as 4 to 84 who are dyslexic, dyspraxic, autistic. And when you tell people that, even parents, well, like, they have to have a high IQ. Like, my son's dyslexic and his IQ is off the charts, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yet he still has to do this course because his reading and all was terrible. His writing is better than mine, but he's not a big reader. I'm the opposite. But there's
yeah,
still certain books, like I was reading the book there about 4 weeks ago, and my wife wanted it after me, and I was told it was a great series of books. Like, I like Jeffrey Archer, I like all that type of stuff. I can read it very quickly. Um, and after about a week, my wife said, "Where are you in the book?" I said, "I'm on page 4." She said, "What?" I said, because the text is so small and they're writing in it, when I get to page 3 or 4, I forget what the whole thing is bloody about, and I have to
yeah,
start. So I had to give up. I had to give up. But
yeah,
there's still some books like Eunice's I'll never read.
yeah.
And there's certain books I know I'll never read. Even though I could go on holidays, I could read 5 to 10 novels in 2 weeks. But there's certain
Well,
books I just will never go near.
you know, you're dyslexic yourself, and I'm sure so many people have dyslexia. Pre-diagnosis probably have this same kind of
Y-
or similar experience. I don't know.
Yeah,
Is that you know there's something not right? You know there's something going on. I actually felt, and my research has shown this across the last 7 years or so, and some of the stuff I've published on it as well, is this effects on the self, on you as a being. And
yeah,
one of them is that you internalize this feeling of being stupid or not as intelligent as everyone else or not as adequate as everyone else. And you kind of shy away from reading books. I always relate it to, remember you saying the First World War, uh, you'd always know the new fellas because they usually got shot in the first day because they'd stick their
yeah,
head up above the trench to have a look,
yeah,
and bang, the
yes,
sniper would get them. So they
Yeah.
used to then, the way to survive is to just to keep your head above the trench line.
Yeah.
And I find people with dyslexia are the same. They
Yeah.
just navigate life without ever putting themselves out there.
Because and you can see with people of your age and my age, if you've been told you've been stupid every day,
Yeah.
you are going to believe that. And I suppose the reason I was taken by your article, and we'll talk about that now, is that you would think nowadays things have changed. And your article was interesting in that you highlight number one, still teachers. Last time I looked, I think teachers got 2 or 3 days training as teachers in all about neurodiversity.
University.
I don't just mean dyslexia; I mean dyspraxia and autism and all that. And like I still see children coming to Amray, and where the parents and are very worried because the child, you can tell the child's dyslexic even without, like Amory could tell within the first 2 or 3 minutes. But they've
Yes.
been
Same.
asked to
Yeah.
read, but they've been asked to read out loud in school,
Yeah.
which is, can you imagine the pressure on someone? It'd be like someone asking you and telling you have 3 minutes to fix an electric car, even though you've never done anything about electrics in your life.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember being asked, like, and you were probably the same, like, I was always the last one in the line at spelling, where they used to stand us all up, ask us spelling, and you sit down and you get it right. And even though everyone in front of me would have said words that I should have learned them because of the short-term memory problem being
Yeah.
dyslexic, I was still the last one. I would still get a clatter, right?
Yeah.
And teachers, like the majority of teachers are very well trained now, and they've researched themselves more, but there's still that cohort out there, young, and it's the young ones I'm amazed about. The young teachers, they still don't understand what dyslexia is. They still don't understand what neurodiversity is, and your article sort of highlights that like they're still not the resources are still not there for them first of all.
I mean, I think there's loads of what you've said there. Loads. Yes, teacher training is very sparse at the moment on teaching the new the new teachers about neurodiversity. But these younger people coming out from colleges have just done secondary school in Ireland, etc., where it's quite prevalent now and people know about it and it's there in the system. But what's happening is even teachers who are in the system and then teachers who are coming through the system is resources. The resources are not there. And I don't even mean just the money or whatever else, but like a primary school teacher is expected to teach what, 35, 36 kids.
Yeah,
10% of that class is neurodiverse, whether it's dyslexia, autism, whatever. So if you've, say, 30 kids, at least 3 or 4 of the kids have something going on, plus maybe ones who aren't diagnosed. So you could have up to 10 children in that classroom who have different needs, need different supports, need different resources. And it's just being thrown on the table of the teachers.
yeah,
Lectures are the same. We have classes of 60 students. We'll have at least 10 people in there. We might have another 5 people whose English is not their first language. So the training is not given, the resources are not provided. But, and my own research has done this and shown that the thesis was very interesting because what I did was I followed students with dyslexia. I hung with them when they were in lectures, when they were in tutorials, doing their group work, having coffee with their mates. I was like their shadow for two
okay,
years. And I reported that back, all their experiences. I interviewed them in depth, regular basis as well. And they all said the same thing. The resources in secondary school, they were pulled out of class, highlighted walking out the door, stuck in the
yeah,
special class.
yeah.
They were all lumped in together. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but
No,
if
I
you
know,
see
yeah,
people with dyslexia, autism, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, English is not the first language, whatever, are all thrown in the. And I'm not slagging anyone or dissing anybody. It's the teachers are doing the best they can with what they're being provided with.
yeah. But the pulling out
Okay.
of class, the highlighting, is like if that happened to you in work, you'd go to your union rep or to HR
Yeah.
to report
Yeah.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the best experiences. So all the students I interviewed over the years, the best experiences they all reported of an educational system was when the lecturer had had experience of, say, dyslexia. So in other words, if a family member of theirs, they themselves had it, or they had taught students before, they were
Mm.
well able to adopt to the classroom. Now, in fairness to where I work, my research has been disseminated with staff, and an awful lot of them have, altered their teaching methods,
Yeah.
redesigned things like PowerPoints to incorporate a neurodiverse model. Very simple things. I mean, even down to the font. Like, we insist on using Times New Roman font.
Mm.
It is one of the hardest fonts to read for a neurodiverse person.
It
It's
is, yeah.
ridiculously difficult. I did a survey on it, and the research came back as well that that's just the most hated font going.
Yeah.
So we're actively working in TU Dublin to change that as well. But these are ridiculously small little things that have a big impact.
Oh, they do.
If you're reading something, right, and if you're reading it in a font that you can't read, that's too small, that's just not user friendly to you.
And too dark.
Yeah, you're on page 4 of the book. You're not on page
Yes.
40 of the book.
Yeah.
And you've lost interest and you can't remember what you read.
Yeah. Well, I've written 3 books for children who are dyslexic, and it's interesting. And my proofreaders are children, mostly
Excellent. Yeah.
dyslexic, and the font I use will make sure it's good. But the interesting thing is 2 or 3 of them, which I think I thought was lovely. Like 2 of them came back and said they've never ever finished a book, and mine was the first they've ever finished, and they're
Finished.
12, 13, 14, 15. But the interesting about what you said is the resources in secondary school, and people need to know this, are very low. When you
Yeah.
switch to college, the resources are so much better.
Yeah.
Because like I have a sister-in-law who went back, and she in her late 40s to do nursing, and she's dyslexic, and she'll tell you the resources available to her to help her were absolutely fantastic, and that the colleges, a college, and anyone listening to this who's in school at the moment and having a tough time in secondary school, if you get out of secondary school and go to college, it's just the resources. It will open a whole new door for you, because from
Absolutely.
giving you time in the exams to giving you the tools to help you with spelling and doing all this type of stuff, it is completely different, isn't it, Keith? It's just a completely
One
different world.
hundred million percent, it's different. And even down to, you talk about that article I wrote, and I'm constantly trying to advocate for this with Dyslexia Ireland. I did an interview in the Irish Independent. It was meant to be coming out today, but I think it's going to be out next week. All around parenting as a parent with someone dyslexia, and
Yeah.
some of the signs you can recognize and all. It's just not out there in the public forum. We just don't make it people aware of it. Like, people have assumptions of what it is. We need to raise awareness of what it's not and what it actually is, and how
Yeah.
we might help people. The smallest of things. Like, in every country, practically, in what we term the Western world, students in state school in their formal exams get extra time. In Ireland, they don't. A
Yeah.
student is
I find
expected to
that.
sit a leaving cert and have no extra time because they might get an advantage. But what they don't
Yeah.
realize is, when it's, when a person with dyslexia reads, say, an exam question, right? A, just the thought of walking in the door to an exam, your stress levels are through the roof. B,
Yes.
when you sit down there, you're hearing, your sensitivities are so high, you're overhearing, you're overstimulated, you're looking at things, you just become so stressed. You start reading a question, you have no idea what the question means. It takes you 10, 15 minutes to work out what the bloody question means. That's what the extra time is for. It's about
Yes.
allowing them to have a level playing field so they can read the question, so they can work it out, so they can make a plan on how they're going to articulate their answer,
Yeah.
instead of the
And
gun to
even
the head that you've
but
got 45 minutes to do it. But when you
but it,
go when you go to third level education, you get that.
yeah, but
You
even
get a
simple things
smaller
like,
room. You can use computers. You can use readers, scribes.
yeah.
The supports in the third level system are brilliant. But again, they're so stretched.
Yes.
What you have is, you've also got dedicated access officers. So within the system, you have dedicated person who looks after the students with dyslexia, looks after the students with autism, looks after physical disability, etc., etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is a far better system. So, and even if you don't get through the leaving, I never did my leaving cert, but leaving cert, I think, is number 5 on the the PI scale of all
Yes.
the things. A PhD is number 10. I can't go any higher, but I didn't need a leaving cert to get there. So
Yeah.
don't let the leaving cert or that result define you.
And tell me, do like when I tell people, like I'm a master's, mine is nowhere near as high as yours. But even when
No,
I
but
tell
it's
people, which I find incredible, that I am. I have a novel out. I have a new business book coming out. I have three children's novels out, and then I say the magic word. Yeah, and I'm the dyslexic, and you go, and you can see them going, not being able to comprehend how the two of those things go together. When
Yeah.
you tell someone you're a PhD and you're dyslexic, do you get the same look?
Oh, absolutely. I get the same reaction
Mhm.
all of the time. I mean, even down to the fact where I've published, I think, 12 things in the last couple of 3 years, right, since I got my PhD. I've done maybe 6 conferences in Europe. I've went to China. I've went to Canada and spoke all about this. And then I always open up with, I'm a person with dyslexia also. And they go, oh my God. So,
Yeah,
but it's constantly, but this is a thing that happens, and it's not just dyslexia. People relate your achievements with your ability or your disability. So they
yeah,
think because you might have one thing, how did you manage to get that? And it's like some sort of extra feat that you've got because you've achieved this. Where
mm,
look at I rather think about how to achieve in higher education in partnership with dyslexia. So you work with it. To me, it's like a superpower. It's like a super strength. As you said, you have to have an IQ to have it. It's part of
yeah.
the system.
And,
I
and,
just
and
don't
there
do
is
things the
like,
way everybody else does. I just do them on my
and there
own.
is a gift, and it's interesting. Like it's a gift. It's only a gift when you know you have it and how to use it.
Yeah. It's
And
only a gift
and
when you accept it and you accept it's part of you and then you work in the partnership with it. And as
yes,
you say, you develop your abilities and techniques to navigate life with it
yeah, and
rather
that's
than fighting
and I
against it.
always say that's probably why I went to work for myself, because
Yeah.
if you work for yourself, nobody gives out to the boss about the handwriting or about the spelling. But the interesting thing is, when I was in your article, I didn't know it used to be called word blindness
Yeah.
because I find dyslexic one of the hardest words to spell for someone who is dyslexic, right? And when I read this about how the word came to be, and it's an interesting article, and if with your permission, I'll put up a link to the article with the interview as well. Like it's only now because I use it so much in stuff I do. Because I go into an awful lot of companies and help them with do workshops and all that I can spell dyslexia. Now I still have to think of it. My pen
Yeah.
hovers, and then I write the word, right? But isn't it gas how to describe this condition of people who sometimes find it hard to spell, to write, whatever. It's one of them, I think one of the most difficult words in the English language.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a Greek word, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the same. I keep doing DSY, isn't it? Instead of DYS. Yeah. I can't.
DYS. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And now,
I
now
do.
I can
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
It is. It's
Yeah.
DYS, but I do DSY. And in
Yeah.
other words, literature. Like, how many times in my academic career in
Oh,
the
I
last
can't do
11
that.
years have I wrote the word literature? And
Yeah.
yet, every time I write it wrong.
And see, isn't that the interesting is that's why people need the extra time in exams because
Yes.
like even when you like that's why I got lucky in my first master's exam. But you're thinking of words to spell that are simple that replaces the difficult words. So you're thinking of well, I can't write literature, so what word could I write instead that I won't misspell it so that the person correcting the exam will understand what I'm saying. So I used to have to put whole sentences in my head that was what I would call easy English
Yeah.
because I knew the person correcting it wouldn't be able to spell it. But while you're doing all that thinking, the exam time is moving on.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned earlier, and it's probably the biggest issue I have is short-term memory. So,
Yeah,
and even when
huge.
I'm talking to you, you'll see me trying to drifting off to try and pull the
Yeah,
word before I finish the sentence so I don't look like a gobshite. And sorry for people not Irish listeners, that means an idiot.
yeah.
But
That's a scientific term for people who ain't Irish.
yeah, if you're not Irish, it's a highly scientific term for being
Uh,
an idiot. But and when you're the more pressure you're under, the more you forget
yes,
as a dyslexic person. The more pressure, the more that kicks in, I find.
but the long-term
To
memory,
me,
like the long-term memory is great. Have you
yeah,
noticed?
oh yeah, yeah,
Like I can meet people 20 years later and even walking the road say that's so and so he works for so and so he does this and they be looking and say well trying to remember my name, right?
yeah,
But if I had met them today in a room, that's why I even do networking like so someone will say hi, I'm John, and I go, hey, I'm Mark. Like my worst one was I was at my son's one of my son's sports days, and I met this chap twice, and I finally had to say to him, so I'm really really sorry, I've forgotten your name, and he looked at me
Yeah.
and went, Mark, he had the same name as me. Right? Like that shows you how bad. But now I actually say to people now, forgive me, I probably won't remember your name because I'm dyslexic. My short-term memory is rubbish. But I'll
Yeah.
remember you in 20 years' time. And I have to say that now because yeah, because it used to be terrible pressure to try and remember people's names all the time.
And it wears you out
It
because
does.
it's we're constantly going around like on a I don't know what it is like. It's that fight or flight where you're constantly in the fight mode because you're trying to remember names, you're trying to remember things, you're trying to not let people know you have dyslexia, you're trying to
Yeah.
fit in, you're trying to be normal, you're trying all of these things, and the stress of it all. I'd
Yeah.
be worn out. My students to be laughing at me. If you ever met any of them, they'd all say the same. They'd be laughing at me. I don't remember any of their names. I know their faces. And they'd be saying to
Yeah.
me, how can you not remember my name after 4 years? And I'd be saying, it took me 20 years to remember my kids' names. So, but I make a joke out of it. But it's true. I'm very bad with names. But you know what I'm very good with? Stats.
Yeah, I'm
But
very
particularly
very good at
sports
figures.
stats. I'm very good at remembering things like in such and such a date, this happened, that happened, and that many goals are scored and all this. And people be
Really.
going, what? Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
But
And it's funny, the
I
one
think in the exams, right? Because I know we're going to move off, and I think this is really important, right? Only because A, I've been through all these exams right up until my masters, and B, I've watched four of my kids go through this leaving cert and the stress of it. Only one is diagnosed, but you know yourself.
yeah.
And I'm watching students, they come into us when they're 17, 18, and they leave us when they're 21, 22. And I'm watching the pressure that they go through, dyslexic and non-dyslexic, but particularly the students who are neurodiverse across the board. For me, the extra time is about you get the exam, you get the question, you read the question. I just say to them, underline the words you don't understand or the words you think are important. Half the questions wobble, gobbledygook. It's just words. What do they want? Do they want you to describe, to explain, to discuss? They're the things you look at. And then when you look at that question, while you have it in the moment and there's no pressure on you, the extra time from me means write down in bullet points all the things you know about that question, all the things you want to say. Because when you start and the pressure comes on, you're clock watching, you forget it all. But if you've spent your extra, you should be given an extra 10 minutes for every hour. So if you get that extra 10 minutes per question and spend it doing that, when the dyslexia traits and characteristics kick in, you then have that resource to fall back on. But when you haven't
Yeah.
got the extra time, you're thinking, I've got to sit here for 3 hours doing three English questions and me leaving. I've got 1 hour of question or whatever, and I've already got 20 minutes and I don't know what I did. There's nothing done. And then the panic sets in.
It does.
And the minute
And
you go into the stress, you're gone.
and the challenge with people who are dyslexic is we daydream an awful lot.
Yeah,
So we disappear into ourselves very quickly if we get confused, and it's all about like, and that's why what Amory does all around confusion and getting people to focus. Like you do zoom out, and you can
yeah,
tell people from their eyes they've zoomed out. And if you're sitting there doing an exam and not maybe the words are not moving, but they start to fade because the confusion in your head has got so bad, you're now zooming out to a different planet. You look
yeah.
back up, and there's 35 minutes gone on the clock.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the whole thing as well. It's like because the pressure is making you zoom out, the pressure is making
yeah.
you be unfocused, and the pressure is making you basically panic like mad.
But you think about anything other than what you should be thinking about.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Everything comes in. You'll be redecorating your room. You'll be buying your car. You'll be on a holiday. You'll be doing 100 things other than focusing on that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
if you are given the extra time and you use it wisely in terms of, and this is only what I did, and I advise students, regardless of what they have or haven't got, and they find that a great asset is that you use that time to look at the question, work out what they want, and quickly as you're working it out, you're full on focus, you're full on attentive, and write down everything you remember about it. For
Right.
when you start getting confused and drifting off, you have that to look back on, and it helps you refocus.
Now, if parents are listening at the moment and they haven't brought in extra time in the exams, and the likelihood, unless there's something major happens, or somebody in the exam commission, somebody with a bit of know-how and maybe who is the executive themselves, say this is what we need to do. Let's even do it as a trial run for a year or 2 years and see if it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
If you're talking to a parent at home now and the extra time is not there, what would you a type of advice would you give them for their child who's dyslexic, and even maybe not assessed, but they know, look, there's a challenge there at the moment,
Yeah.
and they're not getting the help they need, like, and they're coming up to the leaving cert. The leaving cert's a year away or 6 months away. What type of tips you would you say to them that would help that child in that exam?
Well, that tip, which I'm saying about use the extra time for, would be the tip I would get them to do.
Right.
Like when you go in the exam is when you're at your height. When you sit down, that's when your concentration is at its highest. It's when your attention is at its highest. So read the question. So I don't know about the leaving cert because I never did it, whether you have to answer every question. When you're in third level, you get to choose maybe 2 out of 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Look at the easy questions. I always say, and I don't know about you, but this is a thing I found a lot of dyslexia people do, is they try to do the hero. They try to answer the hardest question on the paper thinking that they're going to get more marks because they answer the hardest questions. But it's the exact same marks for everything.
Yes.
Okay, that question looks too easy. They're trying to trick me. No, that's just a question. So look at the question, see exactly what you need, and write down some bullet points that you remember at that moment. So when you're studying, you'll have little, cards or posters or notes or something. You'll always have things to remind you of what you're studying. And then, you can go back in the short, sharp study where you've gone from a page to maybe a little placard or something. So it's like doing that, remembering everything and just getting it down only on a rough work, on a rough piece of paper,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. Or even if you write it in the page, I always say you can only be marked on what you've presented. So even if you get some bullet points down and the information is correct for the answer, it looks to the examiner like you've tried and perhaps something happened in the exam, like you had a meltdown, like you had a panic attack, but you know the stuff. And
Yeah.
most examiners are sympathetic people, or they're empathetic and they'll understand, and at least you'll get something.
Yeah.
And
And what about, like, one thing, people who have been assessed, some parents have been worried, and I know this was brought to court and it was overturned, where if you get a scribe or a reader, it'll actually say in on your results that you got a scribe or a reader. And people think, well, that'll value the leaving cert results. And as we all know, I don't know when the last time anyone's ever asked me if they never have to look at my leaving cert
yeah,
results. No one's asked you to look at your leaving cert results. Like, does it really matter as long as you get the leaving cert to go to college, which will open up a massive world of help to them?
and like I always say, and I say to my own kids here, like the leaving cert is just a means to an end. It doesn't define your entire existence. You have to do it if you want to go to A, B, or C. And if you don't get it, that's fine. It's still not the end of the world. If you want to go to college or to university, right? And you think the leaving cert is the only pathway? It's not. It's far
No.
from the only pathway. And if you don't get the leaving cert, don't worry about it. Just take an extra year to get there and do like a post leaving cert course. Do a
Yeah, a lot of people don't know.
PLC.
A lot of people don't know about these extra routes.
No, like if you look, so if the leaving cert doesn't suit you, look at a further education setting. Look at a place like the National Learning Network. Like they train how to be a commie chef, game design, all of this sort of stuff. Like if you wanted to do, say, beauty or mechanics or painting and decorating, PLCs are doing these things. Further education colleges do all of this stuff, and teenagers, well, they're adults when they finish the leaving, and when you're finished the leaving, you can go and do one of these courses. You can go and do a course in social work, youth justice,
Yeah.
criminology, anthropology, anything, psychology, philosophy.
And they
You
will get
wanted
you
to,
into college.
yes. So
Look,
you do your classes there, but the thing is, you're choosing what you want to do. You're in a much smaller environment. The supports are much better, and you're being basically trained to be an academic because you're doing exactly what you're be doing in college, but just at a different level. And then you learn all them tricks and you come in. I went straight in. I wanted to do psychology and I did a level 7 certificate. And at the end of it, I decided I love psychology, I love all that brain stuff, but I don't want to do it. So that helped me narrow down what I wanted to do. A lot of people
Yeah.
go straight to college with their leaving cert to do something and they're doing it and they don't like it. So that's a really good thing about a PLC if you're unsure. And what's the thing? We don't have to go to college. Why does everybody want to go to college? If I never had
Yeah.
any accident, I would have never went to college. I'd still be painting away today with my little business. You know, I wasn't as successful as you, but I still was successful and I had a good life from it. So I'd still have that, and I would never have dreamt about going to college or worried about it. So you have to do what you want to do and what you think will make you happy, not what your mates are going to do or what's going to make them happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is another thing about it. We internalize all of this. We worry about that. I don't know about you, but overthinking is one of the worst bloody things that we do.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to the ninth degree that you actually have decided what how it's going to end before it's
Yeah.
even began.
Yeah, so you're sitting in your leaving cert, it's supposed to be answering your Irish question, and you've made this big scenario about how it's going to look for you when you don't get to college because you didn't get your leaving and blah blah blah. And you've said, and as you say, oh my God, 40 minutes has gone, you know.
Yeah,
But in getting back to the extra time, nothing is going to change this year. So maybe a lot of our kids or parents might be listening. Hopefully, people that listen. Nobody's going to change now, but it's very simple. Every year, Dyslexia Ireland run a social media survey. You just sign your name and the petition, or send a simple email to your local politician to get this thing going. There's
yeah.
Senator Tom Lombard in the Dáil, and he works tirelessly for people with dyslexia, always trying to improve things. Like
Right.
we have a
Okay.
big push going on, and we're nearly there with it. We're the only country in Europe that doesn't do it. It's
And do you
crazy.
think do you think when you say we're nearly there, are we a year, 2, 3 years away before they finally will say, right, we're gonna do it?
Well, I'd be hoping to be done next year, but you know how things go in this place. Like it could be
Yeah,
10 years. You know,
yeah.
my hope is, or maybe I'm a dreamer, that it's going to happen soon. But we're all
I think
pushing for it.
it will help enough. Like I see them here. It will help an awful lot of people. It will change
Yes.
an awful lot of people's lives, and it doesn't mean they'll do better in the exam, but they have the opportunity to do
Yeah.
better in the exam, which is
Absolutely,
the
and that's
important
what
thing.
that's exactly the nail on the head. Is they're giving the chance and they're giving the support to be able to have a level playing field.
Yeah,
They're not asking for anything more or to be given an unfair advantage. They're just asking for the like the field to be level for everybody. It's a bit like saying to somebody, a wheelchair user, go up to the second floor, but there's no lift or escalators. You just have to use the stairs. It's not a level
yeah,
playing field. How is that person getting to the second floor? You
yeah.
know, I mean, that's probably a bit of a way out analogy or whatever, but
No,
it's
no,
kind
no,
of,
no. That's sort of
I'm just trying to explain that level playing field. That's all.
yeah, yeah,
Like the extra time is not so they write more and get better grades. The extra time is to take the stress off them so they can look at the question, so they can spend time working it out and then decide how to approach it.
yeah,
Where a neurotypical person will just read that question, remember the last 2 years of intense study and training in the classroom, and bang it out. But a neurodiverse person doesn't operate like that. That's not how they think. That's
yeah.
too logical and structured for them, you know. So that's what it's about. Sorry, I know I keep going back to it, but it's such a
No,
near thing.
no, I know you're passionate about it. Well, that's brilliant, Keith. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Really
Yeah, no
appreciate it.
problem.
And if anyone wants to we'll put your article up with your permission, so we'll put a link
Yeah,
to
of
it.
course. Yeah.
If anyone wants to find anything else about you, where will they find you?
Well, I suppose if they just Google, I suppose Keith Murphy, TU Dublin, we have a research repository site, so a lot of the work I've done is in there. I have an Instagram called Breaking the Barriers, which is kind of I advocate for students with dyslexia going to third level education. So
And you're on
I don't
LinkedIn as
know.
well.
I'm on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
but it's mad how people find you because I'm meeting someone this afternoon, believe it or not, who I was in a documentary that RTE made
Yes, which was very, very good.
on
Yeah.
dyslexia, yeah. But somebody watched that and their son wants to go to Minute and their son asked the mother to get in touch with me to see what I talked to them. And they managed to get my email from, but the email is available. It's keith.murphy at tudublin.ie. So anybody can email me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I certainly would never mind trying to help somebody. And so, yeah, I'm meeting them today to discuss this young lad's options. He's dyslexia, he's on the autism spectrum and that, and he wants to go to Maynooth. So, it's
Brilliant.
great. People will find you, so there's no
Yeah,
panic.
people and people, and if they do need help, people should reach out to you because, there's a lot of help there, and when people have pointed to them and shown the right direction, it can
Yeah,
change people's lives completely. Change their lives
absolutely.
completely.
And I mean, even for a parent, like if they have a child and are noticing their struggles or they notice that there's something going on, there's lots of free online tests that you can do, which will just kind of show you that maybe your child is, portraying some of the characteristics of a neurodiverse difference. They're not diagnoses, they're not definitive, but they might give you some ideas. And then you can take the next step of maybe getting diagnosis and that.
Yeah.
In terms of dyslexia, again, Dyslexia Ireland are a wonderful organisation. They are
Mm.
so in tune with everything, in touch with everything, great advocates, and they have a great website, and they've got lots of free resources also for parents and for kids to kind of help
Yes,
them
well.
take steps too. So
Okay,
um,
fantastic. And if anybody wants to get in touch with myself, you can just go to theparagraphchallenge.com. And my email address, folks, is as usual, markbeggs@gmail.com. And thank you very much, everybody, for listening this morning. And Keith, thank you for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
no, thanks a million
That's
for
been
having me on.
fantastic.
Thank you. Thanks a million.